Hi everybody, I'm Brian McDonald. I got some props. Let me just get set up here. Okay. So this is a dog story. I don't know, following the Gonzalez team, this might be a tough sell, but I'm going to try it anyhow. So yeah, let me get right into it. So a while ago I was dating this woman, and she says to me one morning, she says, let's go to the ASPCA. Now this took me by surprise. We hadn't been dating for that long, so I didn't know. I thought maybe this was something that she was into or anything like that. And I said, really? All right. You know, it was right around the corner from my apartment, so I said, all right, we'll go. So we go over to the ASPCA, and they have all the dogs in the cages. And a volunteer comes out and says, do you want to meet one of them? And I said, absolutely not. And my girlfriend says, yeah, we want to meet one. So I go, all right. So we go in the back room, and they bring this dog in. And this is the dog. Right here, you see I brought props. So that's the dog they brought in, right? And the dog is like a crystal meth addict. It's running around like crazy. It's paying no attention to me. And now the volunteer starts telling the backstory about the dog. And I don't know whether anybody's ever adopted a dog, but they all have the worst backstories you've ever heard. You must hire writers to do it, you know? The dog grew up in Appalachia, it never knew its father. It's a dog, it's not supposed to know its father. So in the middle of this story, my girlfriend says to me, I think you should adopt it. And I looked at her like she was, I said, I'm not going to adopt this dog. And she says, yeah, I think you should adopt it. Now, I got to tell you, I wasn't very adept at relationship code. I didn't know where she was going with this. But where she was going with it was saying to me, you should adopt him because you're going to need the company because I'm out of here. Which is what happened. We left and she went her way and I went my way. Now I go home and all I can think about is this dog. You know, maybe she's right. So 2 days later I say to myself, if the dog is still there, I'm going to adopt it. So I go back over to the ASPCA. Sure enough, the dog is there. So I take him home. Right away I notice it's a mistake. The dog wants no part of me. He wants no part of the place that he's living in. He wants nothing. So when you adopt a dog, there's a whole army of dog people out there. They're like a Greek chorus. And they give you advice whether you want it or not, you know? And the advice I got from them was, it's got to acclimate himself. So I said, all right, it's got to acclimate himself. 9 months later, the dog is not acclimated. Here's the next picture of the dog. This is how he looked when I come in the house. He'd be hiding behind the bed. And he'd have an expression on his face like, oh, you again, you know? So the Greek chorus tells me, well, it needs to be socialized. You got to socialize the dog. So I live near Colshur's Park in Yorkville. Gracie Mansion is right there. Right next to Gracie Mansion is a dog run. So I bring Bernie to the dog run. And he's not playing with any of the dogs. He's not only antisocial with me, he doesn't even like dogs. So he's over inside. So this woman shows up. They had just invented the Bernie doodle, you know? So this woman shows up with a Bernie doodle, and the dog is perfect. It's got little bows in its hair. It just came from the spa. And Bernie goes over to it. I go, atta boy, there's my boy. He goes around, does a little sniff, and I'm rooting for him. The next thing you know, he's lifting his leg, and I go, oh no, he pisses all over the Bernie doodle. The woman is apoplectic. I have to pull him out. I can't go back to the dog run. We get barred from the dog run, me and Bernie. On the other side of Gracie Mansion, though, excuse me, I'm losing my breath. On the other side of Gracie Mansion, there's a hill that goes down. It's really nice. It goes down to the promenade, and the East River is right there. And you can look right across to Astoria. It's really nice. And dogs aren't allowed. So it was perfect for Bernie, you know. So we'd go there, that'd be our place. And Bernie was a real early riser. I mean real early. He must have had a milkman in his lineage somewhere. So no, you gotta be an old timer. Right? But anyhow, so we'd go over there. It's right next to Gracie Mansion. We'd go over there, it'd be pitch black. And really, one day we saw 2 raccoons. I think they were raccoons. Maybe they were part of the administration. I don't know. But as the days got longer, on the horizon, you'd see a little strip of light. And then, with a couple of days more, a week or two more, you start seeing the sun come up over Astoria. And I'll be a son of a bitch, and this is the God's honest truth. This crack addict of a dog of mine would sit there like a Buddhist and watch the sun come up, absolutely calm. And that became our thing. We'd go over there and watch the sun come up every day. And before I got Bernie, before I started dating this woman, my life was in bad shape. I was drinking too much. I made a lot of bad decisions. I was broke. I was alone. Now I have a dog that doesn't like me. Things weren't going very well. But it's amazing what will happen to you when you watch the sun rise every morning. And I watched the sun come up for weeks and months and years with this dog. And over that time, little by slowly, very slowly, but unmistakably, my life started to get better. You know, I'm a writer, and I started to get some work. I got a book. Bernie came out from behind the couch and started laying on it. We weren't close yet, but the distance was getting a little closer. I met a woman. Bernie loved her. One day we went over to the hill, and there was a dog there, and Bernie got along. It was a Rottweiler. It looked like one of Mr. Burns' dogs. It was a trained killer, this dog. And her and Bernie got along. Her name was Sweetie, by the way. The name for a Rottweiler. And her and Bernie got along great, you know. But the thing about dogs is they don't live a long time. That's the problem with dogs. And I don't know how long it was that maybe Bernie was 10 or something. I got him when he was 3, so it was about 7 years later. He started having trouble walking. Pretty soon we couldn't go to the hill. I live in a walk up on 89th Street. I'd have to carry him up the stairs. And by that time I would have carried him to Cincinnati. I swear to God I would have. And then he got sick. And there was one night he was really bad. And I put him on my chest. He was a pretty big dog. I put him on my chest. It was the only place he felt comfortable. And this dog wouldn't let me pet him the whole time. I pet him and he'd go, none of that, don't you get close to me. But on my chest he fell asleep for a while. But then it got bad again, and he started to whine, and I knew it was really bad. And there's a place on 60th Street in First Avenue, an all-night animal hospital. And I got an Uber and I took him down there. And the vet was great. She came out and she brought Bernie back. She came out about 25 minutes later and said his whole chest cavity is filled with blood, some kind of cancer. It's very far along. And I said, can you save him? And she said, well, we could try, but you have to know it's, complete recovery is very small. So I asked her a question she probably gets asked all the time. I said, if it was your dog, what would you do? And she wouldn't answer it straight out, but she said, he's in a tremendous amount of pain, and there's only really one way to end that pain for good. So I said, okay. And they put me in this room, and they rolled Bernie in on a table, and they had given him a sedative. But when he saw me, his tail wagged a little bit, and then his eyes locked on mine. You know, he knew something was up. And you know, dogs think we're gods. Dogs think humans are gods. They think we can save them even when we can't. And Bernie was looking at me. He wanted me to save him, and I couldn't. And I looked in his eyes the whole time until the lady put her hypodermic in him, and I watched the light go out of his eyes. And it was, I swear to God, it was a moment I will never, ever forget. And I went home that night, and I was wrecked. I was absolutely broken. His leash was there, his bowl. I didn't know what to do. The girl I was going out with, we had had a rocky time. We kind of were split up at that moment. But I called her because I knew she'd understand, and she did. You know, we both cried on the phone. And a couple of days later, I got Bernie cremated, and I went down to Bernie Hill, I call it, and I took his ashes and I spread it around Bernie Hill so we could watch the sun come up, you know. And the Greek chorus kept telling me, I got to get another dog. You got to get right away. You got to get another dog. But I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it again. I just wasn't going to do it again. But my girlfriend says to me, you know, I think I'm going to get. We don't live together, so she says, I think I'm going to get a dog. And I said, that sounds like a good idea. The pandemic came, and you couldn't. I don't know whether you noticed. You couldn't get it. You couldn't adopt a dog for the life of you during the pandemic. But then about a year ago, she calls me up, and she says, I think I have one. and she adopted Franny. That's Franny. Now, I don't get, Franny doesn't live with me, but I get to see Franny 3 or 4 times a week. And on Wednesdays is our day together. We spend the whole day together. And our favorite thing to do is to go over to Bernie Hill. And I'll be a son of a bitch if she doesn't sit there and watch the sun come up just like he did. Now, they'll tell you that the best sunrises in the world are the ones out in Montauk, or the desert Southwest, or Kilimanjaro, or wherever. But for my money, the best sunrise in the world is the one that comes up over Astoria, Queens. And that's it right there. Thanks a lot.